Good morning everyone, and welcome to the sunrise safari on what promises to be a beautiful and hot day. It's already 19 degrees centigrade, which is 67 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's going to be a really scorching day when the sun starts to break away from the horizon. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie, and I have Wium, the Wildebeest, on camera with me, and driving around on Jigger. Brent and Andrew are off exploring Djuma and checking around Buffelshoek Dam. We're sitting here, quite clearly, at an active hyena den site, one of my favourite places, possibly my favourite place to be on Djuma at this point. And it is a live safari, so everything that you're seeing on your screen is happening right here within Djuma and Arathusa Game Reserves in the Sabi Sands. And if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to get through to us, you can do so on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And they can be about anything from the lovely spotted hyenas that we've got, including this adorable little cub, to anything at all that you see whilst we're out and about. So let's have a look at these two. Now, just before we arrived at this particular den, the older cubs that live at this den site, the twins and their mother, went barreling past us and off towards the east. I'm not sure where they're off to, but there was no way that we could follow them, which is what makes hyena den sites so important, because it's where you can actually sit with and observe their behavior. And the little cub is off to the left, practicing his teething skills on all of the sticks around him. Now, although this is my favorite place to be, it also carries with it a slightly pungent odor. It's a combination of wet dog and then a little bit of rotting meat. Look at him chew. He is so entertaining. Now, at this age, this little one is about close to 3.5, 4 months now. Still a little bit too young to be out and about exploring like his older cousins. But since they were about 6 months old, which is around the time that hyena cubs start to properly explore with the adults, they've been heading further and further away from the den site. They still return here every now and again, but we're definitely not seeing them as often as we used to. And this little one is giving us the perfect demonstration as to how you can go about finding an active den site if all is quiet. Because you'll find that the sticks all around here have been nibbled by very sharp little hyena teeth. It's a way of practicing teething skills. And at about 4 months old, I'm just thinking about permanent teeth. Now, I'm just expanding slightly from what we know about puppies and kittens, but he's probably still losing baby teeth, so still losing milk teeth, and growing those permanent, powerful, bone-crunching teeth that are going to come through. So I'm sure that chewing sticks also help to relieve the tension slightly. Munching away. Hello. Look how big it's got since we first started watching, with all those spots coming through. Where are you off to, little one? You're going to come say hello. Look at those enormous feet. Oh, itchy. And when they do stuff like that, it's very easy to see them as dogs, resembling dogs. But of course, that's not what they are. Oh. Are you off then? Okay. Off exploring around the other side of the den. There's definitely the slightly pungent scent of meat. And if we look at beautiful mom here, how can you not love a face like that? Even if she is a bit moth-eaten looking, she's definitely an older hyena. Her ears are a bit tatty. She's starting to go bald, but I still think she's beautiful. and she's probably responsible for the odor that's come through. The little one, it's at about 6 months old that we've noticed spotted hyenas bringing food back to the den. They don't bring it right up to the den site, but then if the cubs start to play with it, then they drag it around here. And every night she'll be out busy hunting, and it's very important to remember how much spotted hyenas do actually kill their own food. So that is highly dependent on the area they're in. So last night she probably would have been out and about looking for a good snack to have whilst her cubs stayed safe in this den. And she's returned to feed him in the morning. And she's probably coming back less and less now, the older he gets. When that little one was first... Oh, hello. Welcome back. Look who's back. Is it time for a feed? Or are you just going to go bug Mom? Nope. Going to go sleep next to Mom. Down he goes. Just bear with me for one moment. There's somebody calling me on the Game Drive channel who wants to share these magical creatures with his guests. Standing by. Yeah, that's affirmative. There's one Mapimpan out and one Mafuzzy. Yeah, that's affirmative. You're more than welcome. They're Lalapanzi on the western side, the entrance at the western side. Now you can just imagine what she was up to last night and how much they're sort of enjoying the time together now. But as I said, she's probably coming back less and less as he's getting older, or as she's getting older. It would have been very much every night when it was first born, highly reliant on the milk. But now he's going to start to feed on the different bits of meat that she brings through. So we'll have to wait and see how often. There's definitely been a decrease in frequency, and a lot of the times we've come to visit the hyena den, it's actually been dead quiet and completely inactive. So it's nice to come back and find them around and about. Although they're not looking particularly like they're going to do very much at the moment. She's looking very much asleep. I'm just going to let Taxon know that he must take the northern road. Yeah, I think take that 2-track that's just south of the big termite mound on the corner of the road. You'll see where my tracks have gone off this morning. It's your best approach. We have a question that's come through that I've just been chatting about how much this little one is reliant on a combination of meat and milk. But I'm going to I'm afraid, I might get your name wrong, but it seems as though you are at least a new viewer, or at least sending a question through for one of the first times. I asked Statty Go? It's a tricky one. So that's your Twitter handle, and you were wondering how much this little cub is feeding on a combination of milk and meat. At the moment, because it's about 4 months old, it's probably close to 70% or 80% still feeding on relying on mom's milk, and then only just starting to experiment with the idea of meat. At the moment, I think that the meat that's getting back to the den is more for learning and play purposes than anything else, and entertainment value. Not quite at the stage where he can be fully weaned. It's interesting because the cubs start to eat meat at about 6 months old, but the hyenas, quite unlike a lot of creatures, have a very, very extended lactating season. And what I mean by that is that they will lactate for up to a year or over, can be even up to a year and a half in that cub's life. So really, really long time. Unusually long if you think that leopards and lions are only a couple of months. And it's so important in the way that they raise their cubs. Spent a lot of time with these hyenas over the last few months, ever since I started working at WildEarth, and I'm sure before that. And they had a wonderful open den site that was at Philemon's cut line, and we had this little baby black cub wandering around with all covered in folds of extra skin. And yes, Vanessa, this is the little black cub that we saw, and that's why it's so interesting about hyena's milk. It's so high in protein and nutrients that it really, really helps them to grow at the speed that they do and provide nutrition. Morning, guys.
Morning.
The tacks are moving a bit for you to come through. And Sharon, you were wondering, we had that wonderful open den site, and this one's a little bit more tricky. Taxon is trying to come through to have a look. And you were wondering if they will ever reuse old den sites, and yes, absolutely they will. It depends on the number of cubs that they have in terms of ages, but with these guys there is still a chance that they might go back to that den site, so they can rotate between them. But if they don't, then you can almost be certain that their next breeding season, and it's not a specific breeding season that spotted hyenas have, but when their cubs are all born and they try and time them together, then they will be heading back towards that den site on Philemon's cut line. It's just a matter of making sure that they keep moving and rotating through whilst the parasites and the smells build up. What you up to, little one? No wonder poor Mom's ears are so tatty.
I used to be at the other side there, and I noticed.
Giving Mom a bath behind the ears. And now involving teeth. The cop patiently, she puts up with it. Little ones decided that sticks are not as entertaining as Mom's ears. And the question about how much this little cub was relying on Mom's milk versus meat came from, and I apologize for my mangled pronunciation of your Twitter handle, apparently comes from Eye of the Tiger. Well, never fear, we shall not make that mistake again in the future, so thank you for your clarification on the matter. It's very cute. Oopsie. Now, one of the wonderful things about the live safaris is once our 3 hours are over in the morning or over in the afternoon, there is always the option of having a look at the Djuma Dam camera or the Arathusa Dam camera. And Nancy, who's obviously one of our regular viewers of both these safaris and the dam cameras, wants to know why it is that we don't often see them drinking from those pans. And they do come through, especially when there's a lot of groundwater, but bear in mind that they're very specifically adapted to being able to rely or to get moisture without necessarily having to come to drink every day. But not only that, this particular clan very often moves into the north of Buffelshoek. So the clan that is dominant in this area, they're going to move up to Sydney's Dam, which is probably less than a kilometre away from where we are now, whereas the Djuma Dam is about 3 or 4. So they don't have far to go. It's maybe about 500 meters. So Nancy, who hails all the way from Minnesota, that is why probably you don't see them as often, and you're going to see them less and less if the rains do come, because then they're completely independent from having to come to the dams. They can just drink at puddles. Now forgive me for a moment, I'm going to shift forward so that Taxon can have a good view. We will be able to stay for quite an extended period of time, but I'm just going to let his guests come through. So let me shuffle forward, and we'll be back to our nice view in a moment. But whilst I do that, let's chat a little bit about what I said earlier, which was that hyenas are very efficient hunters. Stop there for the moment and let Taxon come through. Are you going to come through in here? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Sure. So I was chatting a little bit. I mentioned that it depends on the area how much they hunt and how much they scavenge. And what I mean by that is in certain... We know that hyenas and lions have a very sort of interesting dynamic, and quite often hyenas will, and have always been portrayed as coming to be cowardly and lazy and steal the lion's hard-won kills. And in certain... Oh, there's one coming. Sorry. You might see a little bit of action now. Oh, sorry, I'll continue with that explanation in a moment. This is why den sites are a fantastic place to be. And the one thing I will say about this clan is they never look hungry. Ah, this is the one with the piercing in her ear. Interesting that there was no real greeting. Oh, there we go. Oh, hello. Look at the gentle sniffing display. Just watch the way that they behave, and I'll explain it in a moment. Look at the submissive display of that cub there. Bless you, little one. Just make a note of the body language. Look at that submissive duck. Tails up. Interesting. Face to face like that. And then both off together with tails up to have a sniff around. Right, so a little bit of an explanation as to what is going on there. It might have, if you're not familiar with spotted hyena behavior, that might have looked like it was an aggressive encounter. It definitely wasn't. It's just that hyena clans have very strict hierarchies. In this particular case, we think that the female with the youngest cub is the matriarch of this clan. So she's right up at the top there. And this younger female with the older cub came in and showed submissive signs, and they always, because they are such sociable creatures, they always have very complex greeting systems where they just reaffirm not only their bonds but also their status within the clan. So the incoming female immediately showed submission by lying down, and so did her cub, and allowing the other hyenas, including the littlest cub, to sniff their genitals. And that's a very clear way of them recognizing or acknowledging the status of this old girl with the tatty ears and the scar on her back. She's definitely the mommy of the clan. Hello, big girl. Interesting that the adults never really show a propensity to... Oh, I might have spoken too soon. I was about to say, the cubs like to steal the oil caps from the cars. The adults never do this, but you should never say never. But I don't think she's going to. Just the tips of the ears poking out above our bonnet. There you can see she's rather moth-eaten looking. There's the scar on her back. And there she goes, off that way. Now the one thing about this den site is navigating around here is not the easiest thing to do. It's quite thick in here, but I'm going to try and shift forward a little bit so that we can stay with the action. But the other thing I wanted to explain is that with these cubs, we saw that display of, or at least that level of recognition that they showed in that particular circumstance, and the level of submission that was shown to that older female. I think they might actually come back towards the den, but let's just shift here for now.
Like something that...
Ah, yes, there's feathers there as well. Oop, I forgot about Wendy's lack of a steering lock. You can see all those feathers at her feet. Something definitely got caught and plucked. Might have been a bird. Anyways. So we're looking at whatever they managed to catch there. And there's a chance that those cubs maybe even hunted it themselves. And I'd started talking a little bit about hunting versus scavenging. I'm just going to be quiet for a moment, just listen to the sounds. It's actually coming from one of the cubs. They're going to... There's no point in my repositioning just yet because hyenas tend to come and go all over the place. And at this particular den site, little cub is anal pasting. You can just see through the bushes there. Such an interesting display of adult behavior. Up until I started working at WildEarth, I never knew that they demonstrated that adult territorial marking behavior so young, or that they were born with fully functioning anal glands. It's incredible. Now, as I said, in this particular den site, I can't really reposition quickly or without making a noise and disturbing them, so I'm not going to until they've settled and chosen where they want to be. And I think Mom is going to, I think they are going to head back towards the den site. Hello guys. Hello. Hello Mommy. Yes, I think you're beautiful. Yes, I do. You can come, it's fine. You can come. There we go. And that's why sometimes it's worth staying in one spot at the den site. Oh, running around. What you up to? They're all over the place. I think they are going to head back towards the den site. There's our last cub coming through. for the moment, the hyenas are all over the place, and most of them have shifted away from the den site. So if we want to stay with them, I'm going to have to, at some point soon, reposition to try and do that. So whilst I do that and try and catch up with the hyenas, let's head across to Brent so that he can say good morning to you all and let you know what he's been up to this morning. And I will be back with you very shortly, hopefully still with these little hyenas barreling around the car.
Good morning and welcome on the Sunrise Safari. It sounds like you guys have been having an absolutely fantastic time with Jamie at the hyena den. For those of you who might not be sure, my name is Brent and I am going to be your other guide for the rest of the Sunrise Safari. And on camera with me I have Andrew, Francis, and of course we have a young elephant bull who's moving past the front of us. It sounds like there's a much bigger breeding herd just off to the sort of south of me, and I think that elephant is moving. Oh, let's get him. He's coming across the wall. So probably late teens, early 20s. So I'll be hanging on the peripheries of the breeding herds. Hello, little man. It's just feeding off that knobthorn. Definitely heard some more branches breaking close by, so I'm sure there's some more ellies around. There we can see I used his tusk there in that initial break to help him break that branch, and it tells me there we go, he's using it again. He's left tusked, and so that left tusk will have a slight bit more wear than the right. And then off he disappears. Let's go see where he's going. I think he's going to lead us to the rest of that elephant breeding herd. What an absolutely gorgeous morning out here. I'm on Arathusa Private Game Reserve at the moment, and we are live following a young elephant bull who I think is on the peripheries of a much larger breeding herd. Yes, little man. He does have quite a bit of a sort of arrogance to his step. He's got that sort of dum 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 teenage bull full of nonsense. I think he might have just been asked to go away by another elephant, or heard something. He was off at a rate down there and then changed direction quite sharply. So as I said, I heard some branches breaking over here, and if he's in this sort of quite boisterous mood, the elephant cows will not take kindly to him around young calves, and that's why you often find them right on the edges of the breeding herd, specifically when they're in this sort of boisterous mood. And as I said, as he was storming down this road, he suddenly looked like he turned around, and there's the cow right there. So difficult to say how many animals in this group at the moment. We can only see these two. And as I said, she obviously gave him some form of a sign. Was that another slightly bigger bull? That's actually a slightly bigger bull by the looks of things. We'll have a closer look. I am a bit obscured by a bush from where I am. So definitely just a slightly older bull there. You can see the shape of the head. It's much more rounded than a cow. A cow's got a very angular head, almost a very square front part of the skull. Lots of ellies around at the moment, all enjoying this nice green flush. Excuse me a moment, I just have to call this in on the radio. To my Lord and Love, Red Dam. There still could be a much bigger breeding herd further in. So at the moment we're not going to be able to go see if there are more elephants beyond, as that guy's really close to the road and I don't want to disturb him by driving down there. To that wonderful long fishing tail, trying to keep some of the flies and other insects at bay. And you actually see that the tail is quite long. So there's always a possibility that these two gentlemen will not be on the edge of a breeding herd. Occasionally you will find that these little bachelor groups, well, they'll form little bachelor groups, sometimes with much older males. When they get to this age, it is the age that they start moving away from the breeding herds. Very peaceful scene in the early morning. Little group of ellies, or two ellie bulls that we know of so far. He's giving us a little bit of a chance to get forward, and while we're moving, a very, very long-term viewer, Lucy from South Bend in Indiana, said she's never been able to figure out why elephants often cross their back legs when they feed. Is there anything to do with body language or behavior? I would say it's a very relaxed sort of body language. I think it's probably just comfortable. I don't think there's any grand theory to why they do it, rather than the fact that it's probably just quite comfortable for them to take a little bit of weight off one of the legs. And it looks like there is a breeding herd here. Thought I saw a little one through the trees here. Big one and a little one. So there's a big cow. And hello. So, like we're saying, quite often you find those little boys on the peripheries. Hello, little madam. There's no need to get cheeky. She's just letting us know she's there before she continues to devour that raisin bush. And I can hear quite a few more up ahead. So it's possible there's a much bigger group than we initially thought. There's two young boys right on the periphery. hear quite a few birds calling around us. Right above us we can hear a Cape turtle dove. And he even tells you what he is. Cape turtle, Cape turtle. And you see that shaking knobthorn behind it? There's that larger cow pulling down the tree there. We can hear crested francolin calling, and we can hear some long-tailed or magpie shrikes off in the distance. The elephants will feed for the vast majority of the day and nighttime hours, and a big adult elephant bull needs up to about 300 kilograms of vegetable matter in a day, and so they are often quite mobile and constantly moving and feeding. And when they feed like this, they often spread out over quite a few hundred meters. And here wrapping her trunk around, and incredibly sharp little hooked thorns on that knobthorn that she's feeding off at the moment. It gives you just an idea. If I had to just grab that branch with my hand, it would absolutely tear my hand apart. It gives you an idea of how tough an elephant's skin and mouth are. There's some more just to make out through the trees further down in the drainage line. And you can see the feet there, and the tail through the bushes. Just going to sneak forward a bit on the right here to see if we can see any more. Like it might be a little bit more open across this little drainage line. I think there might be some on the other side. If not, we'll just pop back to where these ones are. Like they're sticking into that low-lying area right in the center of the drainage line. So we're going to hop around. Jam with this young female here. And what's she feeding off there? Looks like young zebra wood. And she's just grabbing the little succulent new shoots. And now she's moved on to some grass. And you can actually see her ear hole. So on the outside of the ear, and that's why they've got such fantastic hearing, The rest of that ear acts as a big dish to catch all the ambient sounds around. As you can see, she picks up all that little grass, quite active at the moment. And elephants do rest from time to time. And Yummy Sphinx would like to know, do they sleep standing up? Well, they do lie down sometimes to sleep, but especially the younger animals. Normally the adults will sleep, sort of doze rather than fully sleep standing up. But occasionally they do. I've seen even massive elephant bulls sleep lying down, but they cannot lie down on any piece of ground when they get very big, because it's near impossible for them to get up again. So what they do is they'll find a convenient tree or termite mound, and they'll lean against that to have a rest. And it is quite funny. And once, quite a long time ago, I was walking in the bush with my tracker, and we heard a noise that neither of us had ever heard in the bush before. And I think collectively at that stage we'd probably both been in the bush over 30 years. So we snuck up on foot towards this very strange sort of, and it was a big elephant bull sleeping against the riverbank, and he was snoring. And that is the only time I've heard that noise. And I've never heard it again since, but it was a really fantastic experience. And we snuck up to him on foot, didn't even know we were there, and then we moved away, leaving him sleeping against that riverbank. We'll try edge a little bit further forward, see where the rest of the herd are. Always very important to keep your revs very low, your vehicle movements very slow and steady around herds of elephant. If you do that, as you can see, they stay very relaxed. There we go, give us a little head shake. All that's doing is letting us know that she's there, and she's big and she's strong, and we shouldn't mess with her. Now you can see she's relaxed again and has gone back to feeding. Nice eyelashes. The texture of an elephant skin is just so wonderful. Devouring that young knobthorn. There you go, saw the pink flash of tongue there. So we just saw that wonderful flash of pink tongue from this nice big cow who's next to us here. And Lynn was wondering, I said how tough their tongue is. Do I think they ever get sharp thorns stuck in their tongue? Lynn, I don't think so. I think it is really like a tough old boot in there. And I've been lucky enough on elephant captures to actually feel it. And it is like leather. It is quite a soft leather, but I don't think they get thorns stuck in their tongue. Maybe, possibly, they might have a bit of problem with that when they get very old and on that last set of teeth, and there might be sort of some exposed gum from where the teeth should be that might get hurt by sharp objects like thorns and that, but generally I would say not. We're going to move forward. I can see some more down in the riverbed. And even though elephants feed throughout the night and day, their night vision probably isn't the best out of the animals out here. It's still probably much better than ours on a short distance, but their night vision won't be too good. Their definitely daytime vision will be much better. But because they're so big, they don't have to worry too much about predators. So we just sneak past this young lady. Hello, little one. You just continue eating. There we go. And let's see if there are any babies with the rest of this breeding herd. It seems to be, I see some more up ahead here in the riverbed. No little ones yet, but by no means that means there aren't any. Yes, little boy. There's a little, probably between 12 and 15-year-old Ellie bull. He's shaking his head at us. I really love little elephants at this age. They can be quite the performers. But it looks like he's more interested in eating. I mean, as we drive around on these safaris, we do see a lot of trees that have been pushed over by elephants and sort of what a lot of people would classify as elephant damage. And it's definitely not elephant damage. And William from Wildlander was saying he's heard that an overpopulation of elephants in the area isn't necessarily a bad thing, because they do sort of cause a lot of regrowth with fertilization and removal of bushes, so they promote grass growth, etc. It's that little one moving off behind us. William, that is correct. That it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, what happens is in very small reserves that are fenced, they can become a problem because obviously the elephants have nowhere to move to and they don't move vast areas. Here, where we're in this massive open wilderness, I mean, huge area, the elephants are able to move through and out, so they will focus on different areas at different times of the year, giving other areas a chance to regenerate. So I don't think in an area like this that's an open system, that the overpopulation of elephants is a bad thing. Also, nature tends to look after itself. And specifically with elephants in northern Botswana, which has the largest population of elephants, and also parts of Kruger, things like anthrax and drought are generally the two biggest controlling agents of elephants. So if the population gets too big, nature sort of cuts them down a bit, with anthrax and drought being the two most sort of prominent in southern Africa that controls elephants. So the rest of this herd's now all moving up into this very thick area here, and we're not going to go bother them anymore. We've had such a fantastic sighting, there's no need to crash through the bush after them. What I'm hoping is we're going to find some leopard tracks somewhere in this drainage line, and hopefully we can find a cat this morning. This very warm time of the year that we're going through, these drainage lines are going to start becoming more important for the leopards than they have been during the winter months. And just the fact that it's nice cool sand to sleep on, so I'm hoping, even though it is quite early, it is quite warm, and then we'll find some tracks. Some more elephants around the corner. Not all of them have moved up into that thicket. There's another young bull here, just on the peripheries. Same little guy who gave us a little head shake just now. And there's another one. Yes, you're very big and you're very scary. Yes, very scary. We won't go past you. You can see they're grazing there on the nice lush grass that's right on the edge of the drainage line. And given the opportunity during the summer months, You're supposed to clean the sand off. There, oh, you just put the sand off. Elephants will, very interestingly, eat about 80% of their diet will actually be grass. The grass isn't quite long enough yet and whatnot to make it ideal for them. So they still are eating a lot of browse at the moment. But if there is a good rainy season, during the wet season, about 80% of an elephant's diet will be made up of grass and only 20% of bushes and trees. But during the dry season, bushes and trees making up that 80% and only 20% being made up by grass. So, William, that also ties into what we were talking about just now, about how nature sort of sorts itself out. So at certain times of the year, they focus far more on certain species and giving the others time to sort of rest, and then during the other time, they'll feed off that opposite thing. So an incredible natural balance that takes place out here in the bush. Yes, big scary. Definitely my kind of roadblock or traffic jam. Having elephants in the road is far nicer than having other vehicles in the road. Oh, you just grabbed some wild asparagus. Actually, very interesting. I saw elephant Carl do the same thing yesterday. Let him get a little bit further down the road and let's see if we can have a look at that asparagus. Looks a bit different from our traditional asparagus that we eat, but it is of the same family. Sorry, he's very, very big and scary, so we'll let him be the boss of the road for now. Moving on to feeding off that brackthorn. Look, see if he didn't steal all the wild asparagus from under this bush. Fortunately, I think he might have taken all the wild asparagus. Have a careful look at. Can't see any, but I will keep a look out. There is a pretty little flower down there, a little morning glory or ipomea. Can you see it there, Andrew? Mm-hmm. Here we go. Related to the morning glories some of you will have in your gardens at home. Unfortunately, it looks like he did remove the only asparagus plant from under this bush. Can't see any others anywhere, can you, Andrew? Is that some over there? Wait, have a look at this. Let's have a look. Looks... Nope, that's not asparagus. I will definitely keep a lookout for it. But that's not asparagus. It's quite different looking from what our normal asparagus is. Let's see. I do have a picture of it here for you guys. It's called wild asparagus or feather asparagus. And so it looks very, very different from our asparagus. And the really, really good part is that the root size. That's and you can see very pretty little flowers, tiny little white flowers on it. Can't really see in that picture, but in the diagram just below. You can see there. And it's quite popular with a lot of animals. The very young shoots of it can look a lot more similar to sort of our cultivated asparagus, and really tasty and high in nutrients for a lot of the animals. So I think whenever the ellies do get a chance and sniff one out under a bush, they take advantage of it. So we're going to keep following the ellies down the drainage line for now. Also, traditionally, wild asparagus has been found to have antibacterial properties, so often used in a poultice on abscesses and open wounds. Oh, having a little scratch against that russet bush willow there. So keeping on with the wild asparagus, it's got lots of different traditional uses. In Botswana, the young shoots are boiled in milk, and that is said to be a very, very powerful aphrodisiac. And from the more dangerous diseases, further up north in Africa, it's used as a treatment for blood in urine. Now, there's only one real strange little thing we get out here in the wilds of Africa that causes blood in urine, and I wonder if anyone out there can tell me what that is. And so what disease would wild asparagus be a cure for if it cures blood in the urine? And you can send your answers through to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So we'll let those ellies move off and we'll continue on. And while we're still chatting about asparagus and the asparagus family, ex-Ranga from Tanzania, the home of the Tasmanian devil and a popular cartoon while I was a kid, there's a traffic jam, has commented that the diagram looks like female asparagus while humans only eat male asparagus. Well, I'm not sure. I don't know much about non-wild asparagus, but I'll be back with you guys in a second. I'm just going to have a quick chat to Sean as he comes past. Morning, morning. How's everyone doing?
Surviving, how are you?
Very well. And Ellie has popped out of the thicket again. He's come to investigate the new arrival, showing that very sort of cheeky teenage male behavior. Njani
Nikono.
Sharp. Lutho nyamazana.
Mkhumbi ndawo 4.
Awubona ikhomba. And anything That side? EP side?
Yeah, on EP. So right on the drone.
Ah, okay. Hi, Sean. How are you doing? So, I'm quite confident Sean would, and his tracker would have checked this whole drainage line carefully, so there are no leopard tracks there. So we're going to leave them with the elephants, and we're going to just sneak off the way we can, and maybe head a little bit further to the north. Apart from the very specific things we were talking about, wild asparagus is used to treat, it's a very good general thing. It's also got, apart from antibacterials, it's used for dysentery, so stomach problems, stomach ailments, sore throats. So a lot of medicinal uses for that plant. I'll definitely keep checking under all the bushes here. So it only grows in really thick shade, and it'll pop up now, so we'll find it in little thickets like this, and often growing amongst other plants. So it's not the most common plant we get out here, but they are around. Sounds like there's some very smart people up on the sunrise safari this morning, and there's a couple of correct answers coming through, and the correct answer is Bilharzia, or schistosoma as some people have called it, and it is a tiny little snail that lives in stagnant water, or the snail does, and the parasite lives inside the snail, and it'll actually then, if you've got walking through that water, or if you drink that water, or even if you walk through that water, any little bit of sort of little cuts or anything on your body will actually cut open, and they will get into there, and then they go through to your liver, and they can lie dormant in your liver for up to sort of 12 or 15 years, and if they do that, they can then sometimes just lie dormant there till your immune system has another sort of bump. So one of the worst sort of ailments I had is I got malaria, and then while my immune system was down, I had obviously a dormant bout of Bilharzia that was hiding, so it attacked me at the same time. So that's quite often what happens. So generally, if you live and work out in these areas, and you're like me and you climb into puddles and things to catch frogs and all sorts of funny things, I just generally dose myself with Bultricide, and that sort of keeps you out of Bilharzia without problems, because as I said, it lies dormant for a very long time. So what happens if you do take the Bilharzia medicine and you start feeling ill, that means you've got Bilharzia, and after a day or two you should start be feeling better. It's just the medicine fighting that parasite in your liver, and if you take the medicine and nothing happens, then you don't have Bilharzia. So Russell, very well done to you who got that correct. Chatting about diseases and whatnot, because I was wondering, do we put ourselves at risk out here in the bush from diseases? Not really, as I know more than anyone else. The area we work in at the moment is a very low risk for malaria, and not many people will go crawling around in puddles after frogs and stuff like that. But if you know about the diseases that are around and you're conscious about them, they're not actually a big risk at all. I've had a few over my days, but I've also been to very strange places in Africa, Central African rainforests and things, and I've also lived in very high malaria areas. So we're going to continue on to see what else we can find, and we're going to send you back across to Jamie and to see what she's been up to and what she might have found in the last little while.
Welcome back, and I promised you there was an elephant that was in front of us. It seems today you cannot move around Djuma without bumping into Ellies. They're just everywhere at the moment, including apparently in the parking lot of DRC, which I'm sure that Brent might have mentioned. But we just have a lovely family of nyala slowly making their way through the drainage line. Lots and lots of them just now. And some of them are definitely looking quite bulgy in odd places. I think we're going to be seeing a few new nyala lambs very soon. And although they don't have a specific breeding season in the same way Impala do, they will have a peak of birth around the rainy season. All disappearing off now. Let's continue on. Since they've all disappeared, we will very shortly, most likely, be bumping into the elephant. He's just ahead of us on the road. Okay, well, I know that Brent was discussing wild asparagus with you, and you had a wonderful elephant sighting with him. And it's interesting, it's something that I didn't realize that they eat. Or at least I've never thought about them eating. But I'm going to keep my eyes peeled and see if we can catch any more of them eating it. Now, just in case you were wondering what happened with those hyena, well, they ducked off and disappeared into the bushes to find a nice comfortable spot to spend the day. Very difficult to stay with hyenas when they do that. The littlest cub shot into the hole and disappeared, and the rest of them will be spending the day in the shade somewhere resting, unless something unexpected happens, like there's a sudden kill in the area or something like that. But generally, for the most part, hyenas are nocturnal creatures. Where'd that elephant go? How did you manage to lose this 5-ton elephant? I promise you there was an elephant here. I'm sure we're going to encounter him soon. Anyway, so hyenas are nocturnal creatures, and I know that Brent was talking a little bit about the night vision that elephants have. And Yummy Sphinx, good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. You were wondering what hyenas' night vision is like, and the answer is excellent. Just like with lions and leopards, they're adapted to being creatures of the night, especially around here. So they've got that layer, just like things like leopards and lions have, that reflective layer known as the tapetum lucidum at the back of the eye, and that allows them to make the most of any kind of ambient light source and increases their night vision. They can essentially walk through the bush and see the way that we see during the day, although obviously in black and white rather than color. But they can see detail perfectly. The interesting thing about them is, although they can see perfectly, they're not stealth hunters like something like a leopard or a lion might be. So the leopard and the lions, they thrive on dark, moonless nights, maybe with a little bit of wind, where they can approach their quarry without them being aware of them. Now, this isn't something that hyenas adopt. Now, I mentioned that they are very, very efficient hunters, and they do in fact have a higher success rate in terms of hunts initiated versus the actual kills that they make. And that's because they have a different strategy. They've got those incredible sloping backs, and it's one of those things that's given them an image of being a sort of a sneaky, sly creature that is hanging around the outskirts to steal the hard-won kills of things like leopards and lions and cheetah. But in fact, that body posture is perfectly adapted to having incredible stamina. So when they hunt, instead of trying to sneak up on the prey, they don't need to use that technique. They just run, and they run and they run and they chase the animal for as long as necessary, very similar to the way that wild dogs do, until that animal is absolutely exhausted and simply cannot run anymore. They basically out-stamina the prey items that they choose. And in terms of discussing scavenging versus hunting, it's dependent on the lion density. So if you've got lots and lots of lions around, then they're going to be scavenging a little bit more from the lion's kills, especially because they run the risk of, if they do make a kill, the lions actually pressuring them and chasing them off the kill that they make. It has been recorded to happen quite frequently, as well as the prey density and the type of environment that they're in. So if you're somewhere out in the open, like in the desert or somewhere like that, and there's not that many lions, not that much prey, then they are reliant on hunting for themselves. And it's interesting just to continue on with this theme. Now, we don't see them that frequently here. The environment isn't ideal for them, and they've only really just started coming back into the Kruger area over the last 20 or so years. But the spotted hyena's smaller cousin is a brown hyena. And in that particular case, there was always this rumor in the early 1900s that it was the brown hyena that was the savage hunter. Whereas in fact, they're probably far more reliant on scavenging than any kind of spotted hyena. They're also much more varied diet. They're quite happy to rely on things like fruit and insects. But, again, that depends on the environment that they're in. So, I used to work on a reserve that didn't have spotted hyena, that didn't have lions. It was an old hunting reserve that was slowly being rehabilitated towards ecotourism, so animals were being introduced. And at that point, there were a couple of leopards wandering around, a couple of cheetah. The apex predator in that reserve was a brown hyena. It was really, really interesting to watch their dynamics. Much more vocal, much more relaxed. We saw them far more often. And obviously having to hunt for themselves on a very regular basis because there's nothing for them to scavenge off. So it really, that just kind of describes how dependent on the environment the dynamic of hunting versus scavenging is. Out here aren't bound by the same rules that we have, and they are absolute opportunists. You never know when your next meal is coming from. So Melissa, you were wondering if hyenas are cannibals, if one of them dies from natural causes or from disease or maybe is killed by another predator such as a lion, and the answer is absolutely yes, they are. They will not only eat other predators, but they will eat other dead hyena. And interestingly, in the reserve I used to work at, the way that we found a brown hyena dead, we actually found the skull of a hyena that had been taken to this brown hyena den. So they will absolutely do it. It was very interesting to see. And we also used to work regularly with Panthera. So every year Panthera would come across to the reserve that I used to work at, and they still do, and set up somewhere in the region of 100 camera traps, one on each side. And their main focus was to research the number of leopards in that area, because they are far less well documented than the leopards of the Sabi Sands. But obviously with that came hundreds of thousands of pictures of other animals and interesting sightings. And probably, I'd say, one of the top 10 most incredible photos out of, I think it was 40,000 photos we got last year. The best one, or one of the best ones, was a picture of a spotted hyena carrying another spotted hyena's head and sort of front half of the body. and dragging it back to the den. So it will happen. Generally they don't kill each other, but if something does happen, then they will more than happily feast on each other. And I also heard of recorded cases, interesting circumstances, but I've also heard in the case of a brown hyena, when the mother was killed, the cubs actually ate her. And that makes sense, because out here you can't afford to be picky about what you do, especially in a situation where mom is being killed, so you no longer have that support system. So for them, eating their mother was the best solution that they could possibly have approached. Definitely been enjoying this chat about hyenas, which are, I would say, my favorite predator by far. However, I believe that Brent has got some other fascinating mammals to show you, so let's head across to him for now, and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see with this green flush, how much more difficult it is to find animals. And behind there is an incredibly large kudu bull. So I'm hoping he's going to pop out once he's finished nibbling on that knobthorn. But definitely one of the biggest kudu bulls I've seen in the Sabi Sands. Incredibly beautiful set of spiral horns. Just see them there through the bush. And the other kudu walked past this area, this gap where we are, so I'm hoping he's going to do the same shortly. He's coming forward a little bit. And you can see those monstrous wide horns. So, we were chatting a little bit about disease earlier, and Bahazia in particular. Oh, here he comes. We'll chat a little bit more after we've had a look at him. You can see how he has to put his head back with those monstrous horns to get through the thick bushes. Such a beautiful big boy. And we're not going to disturb him by following him too far off the road. And I did spy some giraffe just down the road as well, so we'll make our way towards them. And while we're doing that, let's chatting a little bit about diseases. Mo, hi Mo, was wondering, do any animals such as antelope get mange? Yes, Mo. All antelope and the predators, lion, wild dog, leopard, are all. It's all possible to get mange, and mange is a fungal infection that's often picked up from fleas. I actually have seen a mangy leopard in the Sabi Sands way down south a long time ago. Let's see, where did those giraffes disappear to? Hopefully they went that way, not that way. They're right on our border. And I got a feeling it's the same giraffe we were following on yesterday's sunset safari, where there was that Casanova male trying his luck with an adult female. He wasn't getting very far yesterday. So we're just looking for that tall figure. Off the head. Oh, there we go. I've spotted it. And it looks like the same female from yesterday. Oh, there's another female here. So it's possible. I think the darker of these two females is possibly the same one from yesterday. We are in similar area, but I'm not seeing the male yet. So that's definitely not the female from yesterday. She doesn't have a nice long luscious tail. She's missing the tip. But it was this one on the right, I think is the same one from yesterday. It looks like the male has, no, I don't think so. I think he's a different giraffe. I can see some fungal scars on her neck, which were not present on the other female from yesterday. And disappearing into quite a difficult. Hopefully we'll see. There we go. There she is now. So she had a little fungal infection that causes blank spots on giraffe's neck, and not mange, strange enough, speaking about things like that, but giraffes do get it quite often. You'll see what looks to be big scars on their necks. We're just going to sneak forward again and see if we can get another view of her. Unfortunately, the sun is right behind her and she is in quite a thick block. She's there. How's that, Andrew? And there we can actually see on this side she's also got one. Looks like a sort of scab where she's got a missing piece of skin on her neck. She must be a bit self-conscious. She doesn't really want to be seen. I don't know if you guys heard that. And that was her just giving a little, almost a snort. So there we go. A lot of people quite often consider giraffes to be completely silent, but they're not. Unfortunately, these giraffes are not playing along with us, so we're going to continue on. They're not as relaxed as the ones we were with on the Sunset Safari yesterday, so no point in harassing them. So we're just going to keep on and see what else we can find. Obviously, apart from all the other things and wonderful creatures we see out here, we do tend to have that quite special relationship and follow a lot of the lion and leopard in this area. And Carol from Lincoln in Illinois is wondering if I can give an update. Well, Carol, unfortunately, as I said, I've just got back from leave yesterday, so I can give you a very brief update on what I know. As far as I know, the Birmingham boys have crossed down to the south. I haven't heard that they've been found by any of the other old vehicles this morning, so they might have even headed further south. Last I heard, Inkahumas crossed east to Torchwood, or two of the Inkahumas. We haven't seen any others for quite a while. The Sticks I know of even further down south, avoiding, I would presume, avoiding the Birminghams, or maybe with the Birminghams. So I'm not sure just yet where they are, and as soon as I do know, I will let you know, or as soon as I hear anything on the radio, I will let you know. Also, from the leopard front, the only leopard I know that's been seen recently is Karula, and I was pretty sure I was following her tracks yesterday, and she's somewhere around the Galago camp in that myriad of drainage lines. Shadow was last seen on this property just behind us here, Sibambili. That was yesterday, and I haven't heard anything about the boys, Quarantine and Kunyuma, and young Sindile has gone for observation to hopefully come back to us at some point, but we'll only know more about that much later. And from the males, I haven't heard anything from Tingana, Anderson or Mvula since I've been back, and I have not seen a male leopard track anywhere, and I haven't heard of any male leopard tracks on the radio either, so possibly to the south, to the east and to the west of us at the moment. Hoping maybe we might be able to find that baby giraffe again. This is the area it was in yesterday. Keeping a lookout for some wild asparagus. I think maybe we head down towards the Mawati, and in those thickets along the drainage line we might get lucky with some asparagus there. Always fun to see that. You see what I saw, Andrew?
No. Oh,
In the fork of the dead knob thorn there. Quite interesting, and it does look to be a little fig. Obviously quite difficult to tell which one from this distance. Quite high up in that tree, and I'm guessing more than likely deposited by a barbet. Barbets do like to use these dead trees for nesting areas, as well as sometimes feeding off the insects there, but they are great lovers of figs. So they've obviously eaten quite a lot of figs and then defecated in that fork there, and now that fig is growing. And with a lot of fig species, they become what a lot of people call strangler figs, and it's a whole host of fig species will become strangler figs. And so what will happen is they'll actually start sending roots. Even though they're in a dead tree, they will be able to get quite a bit of nutrients from the dead tree, and moisture they'll be collecting from the air around them, and they'll send their roots all the way down. We'll have a look on the other side now to see if they're extending the roots that side, and they'll send them and they'll engulf this whole tree and use this tree as a support to start their life. So also in these little forks like that, what happens is lots of bird dung, build up of sort of rotting vegetation and stuff from when the tree was alive. So it provides a perfect little flower pot for a young fig to start its life, and quite difficult for anything to eat it up there. We're going to see if we can see any roots from this side, and we'll have a bit of better look. There we go, you can start seeing those roots start being extended down. So I need to go a bit more forward, Andrew.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we'll have a look there. You can see that thick white root there, and so obviously you can see there's quite a lot of a hollow in there, so a whole buildup of debris and dung from possibly squirrels and birds, and it's provided a perfect little, very fertile little flower pot for this young fig, and it'll start sending its roots much further down to try reach the ground quite shortly, I would see. I mean, definitely worth keeping a watch on, see if we can see any of those roots a little bit later in the year extending down towards the ground. As I said, at that age, very difficult from this distance to identify exactly which fig, but it is definitely a fig. Oopsie. There we go, so right up, nice and high up in that fork there. Very difficult for anything to eat that young fig, so a good start in life for that. Now, it's just going to be on the Game Drive radio.
Hi guys, and apologies for that sudden break in Brent's signal. Luckily it coincided perfectly with us coming upon this man who has been in this area fairly regularly. We see him around here. We saw him yesterday morning. The male wildebeest that likes to live around Impala Plains and Eugene's holiday home, just by one of our repeaters. We shuffle forward a bit. He's quite shy, this one. He doesn't tend to stick around when we see him. But at least we managed to get a bit of a view of him. That's not very convenient, boy. Well, there you go. There's a wildebeest bottom for you. But look how incredible that tail is. A perfect fly switch. And I do know that local people often utilize wildebeest tail, or did in the past, as a way of keeping flies away and swatting at them, especially at this time of year when it is really, really warm. And I mentioned yesterday that we will go on seeing him around this area because as wildebeest they are territorial, so they defend a certain area and then they try and fight for the best possible place and wait for the ladies to come to them. So he's somebody that, barring anything unforeseen, we should be seeing on a fairly regular basis around here. Hopefully he'll become a little bit less camera shy. I'm going to leave him to his morning breakfast of grass shoots. At least he's got some nice green stuff to feed on. Now, whilst you've been with Brent, I've been checking all along the western boundary of Djuma, and I'm starting to think it might be a good idea to head across into Arathusa, where I tried to go yesterday, but had a couple of problems with signal. But whilst I was there, we bumped into a bird of prey that had me stumped for a while, and had viewers stumped as well. And I took the photo back to ask the other guides, and there was still disagreement as to what it might have been. So for those of you who were watching yesterday, we still haven't had a full clarification on it. I'm going steppe eagle. This will be the first steppe eagle that we've seen in the season, just by its size. I went back and sort of compared sizes and had a think about it. But the fact that it had, when it flew away, a completely white chest is something that's very, very different. Oh, little steenbokkie doesn't want to be seen this morning. So it must have been a juvenile something. We went across to, we considered the option of a booted eagle, which has lots and lots of different pale color morphs. And those are more, the pale morphs are more common than the dark morphs, so it was a possibility we considered. But it's still a matter of disagreement between the various guides as to what that bird might have been. We're still not sure. Booted eagle is quite small though. It's roughly just bigger than a Wahlberg's eagle, and that bird to me was quite large. So I'm still going with a juvenile steppe eagle, maybe with some kind of weird coloration variation. But it was a very, very tricky bird ID. It just goes to show they can throw some serious curveballs at you every now and again, especially if you've got color morphs or you throw color morphs into the picture. Yeah, it's the Birmingham boys. This is where the, hold on. This is from the other night. It's the Birmingham boys that Scott encountered randomly. Just having a look, double check myself. No, these are not fresh. Is that squirrel still visible?
No,
disappeared off one of the prettiest trees on the reserve, the balanites, the torchwood. So the big lion tracks on, oh there he is, well spotted. Also playing camera shy today. But yes, the big lion tracks that we're looking at the moment came from the Birmingham boys 2 days ago when they crossed south of our boundary. Let's try and see. I think that squirrel is going to play shy. I'll keep an eye on him, see if we can maybe get a view of him. boys across south, and there was a report this morning that they had then crossed north into, sorry, let me just check these tracks again. Leopard tracks. Nope, sorry, hold on, soft sand. Oh, these are leopard tracks. Interesting. Try and get you a nice view. My vehicle is going to possibly
Might be too close.
a little bit too close. See if they pop out further. Sorry, distraction level there. But these are freshish. Where do they go? Looks like... Okay, this position of the sun is going to make this very, very tricky. But I can still see them here in the road. Looks like a female. Let's try and get an idea as to how fresh these are. Is that going to be too close there? There we go. Perfect. Well done, Wildebeest. Right, let me just hop out and give you a quick show of what's happening here. And it's also so that I can get an idea of how fresh they are. They definitely look fresh to me. I wonder who this could be. Very small, very delicate tracks, so they are definitely females. You can see, is this track you're on, Wildebeest?
Go to that one.
You see it? So a very, very tiny track. It's roughly the size of my palm, which makes it a female. She's walking fast because her front track and her back track, there's quite a big gap between them. Now what I want to have a look at is how fresh these are. The best way to do that is to have a look at the tracks that are around them. It's going to be very difficult for you to see, but I can see little mouse tracks moving through here, and that means that these tracks are very, very fresh. They're from this morning, so she's here somewhere. I don't know who it could be, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it might be Shadow. We definitely haven't seen her in a while. I'm going to discount Karula. It's an assumption, but I think that it is most likely Shadow. So let's go see if we can find her. These are fresh, 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 on top of all of the tracks from last night. So I said that I can see little gerbil tracks, or little mouse tracks, and those sorts of little rodents are nocturnal, which means that her tracks are falling on top of them. It was from sometime this morning. Let's see if we can find out where she went. And this is a regularly used area of hers. Let's see. As I said, moving fast, so keep your eyes peeled. Now it's just getting to that point in the morning where the temperature is increased so that we have a chance that she might go flat. In other words, she might lie down for the morning. Looks as though she's gone in there. We'll just double check that. I wonder who this is. Now, the only reason I'm discounting Karula, and it's a dangerous thing to do with animals because they are tricky that way, is because she was right on the other side of the reserve when we last saw her tracks coming, or when we last saw her tracks, and then she crossed over the dam wall yesterday afternoon. So she was heading in completely the opposite direction to where we are now. That being said, Karula's very often done that to me. Okay. No sign of her here. This leopard has gone into the block here. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to go and check the old hyena den road. And I'm going to do a loop around and see if we can catch her out. wherever she ends up. Let's see if we can find her. At some point I am going to get off and walk. The thing is with this block is it's absolutely huge, so I just want to make sure that these tracks don't come out and cross the road, otherwise I'm going to spend 20 minutes tracking a leopard that's moving very, very fast. I might not be able to catch up with her, so I just want to double check along all of the roads first before I do that. I'm also going to call the tracks in and let the guys know that I've got something. Maybe they can come and help me follow up. Stations I've got in Kunzo for Mfazi Ingwe go east from the Balanites Rebecca's Junction into the block around the old hyena den. Just letting Brent know. Brent's going to check the western side of quarantine for us. Whilst we check along here. Keep your eyes peeled for spots in the grass. You never know where she might be hiding. Lovely, thanks. I like this particular approach because it's nice and open and it's got quite a nice vantage point for exploring around this block. Got a nice height over the drainage line. My suspicion is she's snuck into the drainage line somewhere here. Oh, there's the distinct scent of lion scat. Now we're looking for a female leopard. Which one it is, I just don't know. There's a possibility it's Shadow, there's a possibility it's Karula, a possibility it might even be Kwatile. Jerry, who's watching all the way from Maryland, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. You were wondering if we have any leopard cubs around. Oh, sorry. And the answer is, we suspect that we might. So we think there's a possibility that Karula might have had cubs. Shadow won't be. We think that that estrus that she went into whilst mating with Tingana could have been a false estrus. The other possibility is, of course, Kwatile, but that's going to be another 3 months waiting period before she possibly pops those out. But it seems as though Karula might have a distinct possibility. We've seen her tracks up and down the same area. It's just a matter of figuring it out and approaching the situation very delicately. I think that she might. Right, I'm coming right up into the end of the road to double check here. To our viewpoint here. Now, these leopards can be so cryptic and hide in these drainage lines. I think let's even check the big tree over there off to our right. See if we can spot any leopard hanging out in there. I'm also listening for alarm calls. Here, and it's all very, very quiet. Usually when a leopard is moving through an area, they're quite often spotted. Now, if it is Shadow, I'm sure many of you have heard the news about Sindile, her cub, but I know that Tammy wanted to have a bit of an update on that. So Tammy, it is essentially the best outcome of quite a difficult situation. What has happened is the Sabi Sands and the state vet have decided to remove him to a care facility where he can be kept an eye on closely and properly, and where he can be given his vaccinations as soon as he needs them, rather than risking the situation where he disappears off into the bush somewhere and we can't find him. So they've removed him both for the safety of the other animals in the area as well as human beings, and so that they can give him the proper care that he needs to get. And the wonderful thing, it's a difficult situation, but the wonderful thing, or the good outcome of all of this, is because we caught it early and because we were witness to the event rather than it happening sometime in the night or something like that, is that we were able to, or the authorities were able to act very, very quickly to send him off to a care facility and to give him the vaccinations that he needs to prevent him from getting rabies. So the tests from that dog did come back as positive. It did have rabies, so he would have been possibly exposed to it, but luckily the actions have been, or at least that's been acted on very, very quickly. Now, beyond that, we're just waiting to hear for more information, and we will let you know, I promise, as soon as we know anything further about what's happening with him. He's got another couple of injections that he needs to get, so it's going to be a while before we hear any further news. But trust me when I say this is the best that could have happened in a bad situation. It's hugely unfortunate that he got hold of the dog as he did, but there's been a lot of care that has been provided to him. Now, in terms of Shadow, she does not run the same risk. Rabies can't really be passed on. There's an incubation period, and until an animal starts exhibiting symptoms, he's not going to pass it on. So Shadow will be absolutely fine, but she will be moving about quite a lot more than she used to now that she's no longer hunting for young Sindile. So this could well be her tracks, checking around here. The unfortunate reality of this complicated situation, and of course I just so wish we could explain things to Shadow, but Anne, who's also from Seattle, you were wondering how long she will continue to search for Sindile, and I, of the Tiger, you were also wondering if she would welcome him back when he does return. She's going to probably search for him for about 2 weeks. That's the standard. If leopards lose their cubs, that's the standard sort of general mourning period, as it were. So it's been about a week now. She'll probably search for another week. She will call. It is heartbreaking, and you wish that you could communicate to her somehow that what has happened has been for the best and that her cub is safe. But she will be looking for him. We cannot pretend that she won't be. So it'll be for about 2 weeks. Her body will go back into estrus again, and she will continue to mate and then have a fresh set of cubs in the next few months. In terms of whether or not she'll welcome him back, I can't really answer that. I'm not sure. In terms of what I think will happen, yes, I think that she might. She won't welcome him back and look after him in the way that she used to. That will definitely not happen. But we do know that leopard mothers tend to be a lot more tolerant of their cubs. So it's a situation that I'm not sure. In the scenario when he is brought back to her, she might still be tolerant of him in her territory, but she will not look after him in the way that she used to. He will be on his own once he is back in the wild. In this side of the block just in case. something there. I just want to double check and make sure that this block is clear. I think I can speed round here and make sure that she hasn't popped out on the other side. I haven't heard any alarm calls, so I'm pretty sure that she's not still in the region. Her tracks indicated that she was moving fairly quickly. Still nothing has popped out on this part of the road though. Has it? Let me double check. Nope. No leopard tracks here. Here so that we can listen for alarm calls. Now, we've got a question about the way that guests respond and the way that guests act. So we know that animals have a very, very strong sense of smell, a very good sense of smell. And Maggie, you were wondering if the fact that guests might wear deodorants or perfumes or strong smelling shampoos, whether or not that has any kind of effect on the animals. And they're very used to it at this point. You can be constantly exposed to it, but they will be very familiar with the scent and they will associate it with people. When I go walking, I try to make sure that I only wash with soap. I don't put scented shampoo in my hair or anything like that. But it's never really been too much of a bother. Just taking a moment to listen for alarm calls. Okay, let's go check the other side of this clearing. Since this is raw, all these wheels catching there. Somewhat devoid of leopard life at least. I'm going to go and check around and down Rebecca's in case they come out. I know that Brent's been checking around that side, so let us head across to him and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully Jamie gets some luck with those leopard tracks. And as we get towards the latter part of the drive, it's really heated up. And if we have a look just off to the left here, I mean, already it's not even 8 o'clock in the morning. And we've got the kudu who've already stopped to sit in the shade, ruminate. So try avoid moving too much in this really, really hot weather. Being very peaceful in the shade there. So unfortunately we're going to have to disturb them as we carry on down the road. Our plan from here is we'll make our way towards the tree house or waterhole. Maybe there might be some action there. So just go very slowly past these kudu. might stand up, but they won't move too far from here. And slightly younger than the big boys we saw earlier this morning. Sorry, boys. We'll find a nice shady spot to lie down, not next to the road. Of elephant tracks around. There seems to be incredible amounts of elephant around at the moment with all this greenery around. So always good to check around the different water holes and see what we can find down there. Also those tracks that Jamie had, we said were coming east, so we're doing a really big wide check around to see if we can possibly find if she has come much further down to the sort of south and east, but we are sticking much wider than Jamie, giving Jamie some space to really get onto those tracks in that area. Still keeping a close lookout for wild asparagus.
All the asparagus back there.
Oh, well spotted, Andrew. There's some more over there. Eagle eyes of Andrew Francis on camera has spotted the wild asparagus. We can have a look at it here. And as I said, quite popular with a lot of animals. And to try to defend itself against some of those animals, they have developed thorns on the wild asparagus. There we go, you can see those little, very sharp little thorns on them. Of course, absolutely nothing to an animal like an elephant or even a kudu. So, it's going to have to develop some better defense mechanisms. So the young plants like this are edible to humans. Nice fresh little shoots. Maybe. Should we give it a try, Andrew?
I don't see why not.
Just don't eat the thorns, Andrew. Our mouths are not as tough as an elephant. Just make sure we don't get any thorns in there.
Thank you, sir.
See if it tastes like anything like asparagus. Not unpleasant at all. I'd definitely add it to a salad. Doesn't quite taste like asparagus, but
it's very nice.
Almost like a lettuce taste almost to it. No wonder it's the elephants are such big fans. I can't even stop. Do you want some more, Andrew?
Yes, please.
There you go. I'll keep it as my game drive snack next to me there. But I can imagine them, as they get a bit older, being quite tanniny, so a little bit bitter. But So the young shoots are generally eaten by people, and obviously if you're an elephant or a kudu or nyala, obviously you've got a much better tolerance to tannins than we do. Quite close to the waterhole now. Hoping we've got some action there. Even if possibly some zebras or something come down to drink. As it gets warmer and warmer, a lot of your animals will come down that little bit earlier in the morning. So even though it is still quite early, it is already very warm. I'd say probably closing in on 26, 27 degrees already by now. So what we would have had sort of heat of the day in the middle of winter on a hot winter's day is now already this temperature in spring at before 9 o'clock in the morning. Jamie's got something. We're going to cross really quickly across to her.
Welcome back, and I'm going to try and reposition. They've just flown away, but the grey hornbills were having a serious disagreement around us. There was a bit of fighting, a lot of calling. I can still see them. I'm going to try and loop around to them. They were tumbling out of the sky and shouting at each other, hoping they're going to stick around. Grey hornbills are sneaky like that. They're not nice and relaxed like the red and the yellow-billed. Still hear one calling in the distance. Let's see if they carry on their shenanigans. There's two of them sitting up at the top of that albizia tree. There's just a head poking out for now. And I'm going to be quiet for a moment, see if they call. You see him there, William. He's at the top of the albizia on the right. If you go to that tree at the back, zoom into the top there, up a little bit, up some more, right to the top, there he goes. Oh, you sneaky things. I don't know what they're fighting about. Oh well. Birds and their shenanigans. They tend to disappear fairly quickly. I think that was the last of the four of them, but they were tumbling together out of the sky. They clashed talons and sort of wrapped, and they fell straight out of the tree that they were in, almost hit the ground before disappearing off, and they were all doing that very characteristic whistle. That it's a pity, but I think they might have disappeared on us. One of those things about live safaris is that the animals don't always cooperate the way that they're meant to. So we apologize for abruptly tearing you away from Brent to try and show you a hornbill flying away. It was a bit more exciting than that just a few moments earlier, I promise. But that was really interesting because I've never seen them do that before. And hornbills are cooperative breeders, so I don't know if it was a little internal domestic dispute, as it were, or if it was a sort of a territorial, two different family groups meeting each other. Could quite possibly have been either of those options. But unfortunately, they have vanished off to the south of us. I'm still trying to follow up on those leopard tracks by looping around and down into that drainage line. I'm hoping that she's somewhere in there, seeking refuge from the sun, which is already very, very warm. What I meant when I said that they were cooperative breeders is the offspring from the previous year will stick around, especially the male offspring, will stick around with their parents. I can hear you, you sneaky, sneaky things. I hear you somewhere. you sneaky birds. I can hear you. Come on, keep calling. Keep calling so I can at least provide the audience with a example of your whistle. Here we go. Can you hear that? There you go. Oh well, at least they cooperated in that respect. That's the sound that they're making. Well, at least they tried that. It's another elephant. Saw this dark shape moving out of the bushes. Hello, elephant. Have you seen a leopard around? Not that you're not wonderful, of course. Oh, today is Elephant Day on Juma. Actually, this week has been Elephant Week on Juma. What you up to, boy? You're following behind a herd somewhere. Interesting. I'd love to know what it is that all of a sudden the herds have arrived around here. It's really, really interesting. Not sure why that is. He's just munching away on the fresh blades of grass. I think he's going to come towards us, so I'm going to let him move into our space rather than the other way around. I think he's going to move out nice into the open. Here he comes. Hello, big boy. What are you feeding on? Young male, a young bull, probably following behind the rest of the herd. I can see their tracks crossing the road ahead of me, so they've already come through. Hello, boy. What you been up to? Swinging his trunk around. Oop, head first into a tree. He's actually scratching with his trunk. Yeah, he's scratching under his armpit. Such a versatile thing, that wonderful trunk. He's wrapping his trunk around some of the budding tree wisterias that are coming through. Let me scoot forward a bit. He's right in the sun, beating the grass, getting rid of the dust. And plucking away. Stripping. Did you hear that flap as his ears hit the side of his head? He's just flicking flies away, as well as helping to cool himself down. Just imagine how much he's consuming in one go. They're phenomenal things to watch. To him just because he is so relaxed. I can't go around him, unfortunately, but I want to see if we can have a nice look at these beautiful white tusks of his. Hello, big boy. Now he's got rather clean looking tusks. If we can have a look at them when he obliges us. And Virginia, you were wondering, why do some elephants have dark patches on their tusks whilst others are really nice and white and clean? Yeah, on closer inspection, he'll still have those dark patches. And the answer is just that it depends on what the elephant has been doing and what plant material they've been eating. Sometimes you even see them with streaks of red on their tusks because they've been using them to strip bark. Sometimes they've been digging with them, so they get covered in mud, and then sometimes they've just been using them to strip leaves. Oh, thank you, boy. Was that just an emphasis to my point? Quick release of some of the gas buildup that occurs during his digestive process. Oh, itchy ear. So it very much, in answer to Virginia's question, depends on what it is that they are feeding on. You'll also see it on their trunks as well. Look really carefully when you see elephants along the underside and the top side of their trunk, because quite often they come with green stains or red stains, and even that can tell you a little bit about what they've been feeding on. And he's beautifully patient, this boy. There are those beautiful tusks. You can see the cracks and the faults perfectly, the little scrapes where they've been caught on thorns and sticks. Go, good boy. Thank you. That was very kind of you. He's going to disappear off into quite a thick block. Since we have had such an eddy-filled morning, I'm just going to let him head off and get one last view of him as he disappears. I'm not going to stick around with him for too long. I want to see if I can locate this leopard, hopefully hiding somewhere in the shade, somewhere around here. And I was hoping he might demonstrate for Lucy, who asked about the way that elephants stand and they cross their back legs. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to be keen to do it. He is resting his weight, though, on one shoulder. He's found a nice patch of shade. I suspect he might be heading across to Treehouse Dam. There might be a little bit of water, some mud wallow to head across in. There he goes. That's wild asparagus as well, I think, it looked like. Jumped away. They're obviously enjoying that. Oh no, sorry, it wasn't. I've got wild asparagus on the brain now. Looks like baby, or well, whatever it is fairly disappeared now. Catching all of the little perennial plants that have just come through. Alrighty. He's going to slowly disappear off in that direction into a thick block. And since we have spent so much time with Ellies, I'm going to go and look for our leopard in the shade somewhere. And whilst I do that, I believe that Brent, in continuation from talking about wild asparagus, has another medicinal plant to show you. So let's head across to him and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. It seemed that everyone was so interested in sort of the medicinal uses of that wild asparagus. I found another really interesting little medicinal plant that we're only going to see during the summer months here. And it is a form of lily. Unfortunately, it's not flowering yet, and I will show you a picture of the flowers shortly. Let's have a closer look at the leaves for now. So here we go. Actually, these wonderfully big, beautiful leaves. It's an arum lily. And possibly one of the most exported of the South African wildflowers. If in the right conditions, the leaves will cover a blanket of ground, look very, very pretty, and they have the most exquisite white and yellow flowers when they bloom. But we're not going to talk about the flowers just yet. I will show you a picture shortly. One of the most important things, one of the main uses for an arum lily is you've got to be very careful now, from my point of view, not to break the skin of that. The sap can be quite irritant towards people, and if you get it anywhere near your nose and mouth, it causes swelling of the mucous membrane, so we don't want that. But as a dressing for a wound, the leaves are taken, boiled slightly or warmed in water, and then applied to the wound. So it does have some antibacterial and some sort of regenerative qualities. But more than likely, it's just that it's a really lovely, soft, smooth, and quite cooling dressing on a wound. And certain animals absolutely love them. And in this area, porcupines will eat them leaves, and they've got wonderful big rhizomes or roots as well. And the porcupines will eat almost the whole plant, including the flowers. And that effect that it has on humans doesn't happen with porcupines. So very, very interesting. From a human point of view, in times of drought in sort of yesteryear, in the sort of southern and eastern Cape, the rhizomes were boiled and often mixed with honey as a sort of delicacy during times of drought. And these will only grow around the edges of drainage lines and sort of swampy areas up in the grasslands. So really, really wonderful. And a huge, huge importance for them in sort of early colonial times in South Africa was as pig food. Pigs absolutely go nuts for them. And so they were grown because they're quite easy to grow. I know of one lady who actually got 80 different individual plants from one little sort of seed pod. And so they're very easy to grow, so they were used quite often as pig food. But most commonly these days, they're used as a beautiful aesthetic, and they can be found in flower shops all over South Africa and actually other parts of the world. And they're called the arum lily. And you can see that nice big characteristic leaf that we're looking at now. And there's that beautiful, beautiful flower. Now, quite often, with a little bit of water and whatnot, that flower will trap quite a lot of insects. Not on purpose, but they do dissolve in there and cause the plant to gain some nutrients from there. Also, you have quite a few different spider species that will live in these little holes and catch those insects as they come in to pollinate the flower. But really, really wonderful, beautiful plant. And we definitely, now that we know where this one is, we have to keep a close look on it. And hopefully it does produce these wonderful flowers later in the year. There we go, that's the arum lily. Then we're going to continue on, see what else we can find. I will be keeping my eyes open. So another nice thing about the wildflowers is if you know how to identify them before they get flowers, you get to know certain areas that you're definitely going to come back to at some stage to look for those flowers. So really great that we've got a nice arum here, and hopefully it should start flowering in the next month or so. Have a look at those mud wallows on Twin Dams Road. Maybe as it's warming up we might find some elephants having a mud bath, or possibly some of those old buffalo boys enjoying a wallow. We're searching for something else to have a look at. We've got a bird question from one of the largest waterfalls in the world. So Donna from Niagara Falls in Canada would like to know whether we ever see ostrich out here on the safaris. Donna, in the collective years I've spent in the Sabi Sands, I have seen one. It came through from the Kruger and got chased. I saw it being chased by lions and by cheetah. They didn't get caught, but we only saw it for about a month and then it disappeared. It was a female. So if you go further to the east of us here, the bush changes slightly, the soil type changes slightly. So you move from what we are on here in the Sabi Sands is mostly quartz soils or granite soils, and if you go further to the east, you get onto basalt and gabbro soil. So you won't have as thick bush as this, only sort of around the drainage lines. And the ostriches prefer that. It's slightly drier, far more open. They've got a lot better visuals around them to protect themselves from predators. So not very far, about 40-50 kilometers from here. Ostrich can be quite common in certain areas, and we used to see them quite regularly when I worked in that part of the Kruger. And this time of the year, you'd be seeing them with all their little babies running around with them. But here, as I said, I've only ever seen them once in the Sabi Sands, probably as the crow flies about 4 kilometers from where we are now. As it gets warmer and warmer this morning, we start peering more and more into the sort of deep shadow. Deep shade, that's where we're going to find the more interesting animals at this time of the day as it gets hot. And on termite mounds like that, with a nice big green scotia at the top of it, always when I go past there we have a look in case there's a leopard lying on there. That's sort of ideal. Nice deep shade for them. Oh, big spider web. Did I get the camera? Yeah. Yeah. See from the trees on the edge here, the wind's picking up a little bit, not unusual at this time of the year. Quite pleasant for us, it cools down everything a little bit. That there, I think we came looking for elephants and buffalo mud bathing, but we found the other animal out here who really loves a mud bath by the looks of things. From the ears I can just see peeking through the bush ahead, and I wonder if we're in time. I think we are. I'm just going to stay a little bit further away as not to spook them. It looks like they're about to start their mud bath. No guys, don't run away. Little group of warthogs. Not a bit self-conscious about bathing in the mud in front of people. Looks like they're going to move on to carry on feeding. What I'm going to do, instead of going down this road, I'm just going to go around and see if they possibly move back towards that wallow. So if they think we're leaving them alone, they might be lulled into a false sense of security. But while we do that, let's actually have a look. There is still some mud in there. I'm not going to go too close. And that sort of looks perfect for a warthog to have a wallow. So we're just going to carry on past that. They're just behind it. I'm sure it doesn't look like they're going to come down now, but I'm sure they'll come down once we've gone. So we've been chatting quite a bit about healing plants. And Charlotte, who's from Port Elizabeth in South Africa, Port Elizabeth is quite often known as the friendly city or the windy city. I can't remember which one. Do you, Andrew?
The windy city.
Is it the windy city? Oh, hello, nyalas. See, they're already moving into the shade and starting to ruminate because it is quite warm already. And Charlotte was wondering, with all these different medicinal plants that we get out here in the bush, do any of the carnivores stop to feed on them and to make themselves feel better? Charlotte, not that I know of, I haven't actually heard of any of that. I mean, the closest I can think of is when we've seen leopard licking buffalo dung as a sort of probiotic. And occasionally you will see them eat grass rather than anything else, and that's if they do have a bit of an upset stomach. But I've never really seen them focus specifically on medicinal healing plants. Some animals that do, elephants, and especially youngsters when they're teething, have been known to chew on certain trees like terminalias that have a bit of a sort of anesthetic effect, so it helps numbs the pain of teething. And then certain of your browsing species, kudu, black rhino, elephant, giraffe, have been known to feed off the tamburti tree, which is highly noxious, very, very poisonous. And when they've got an infestation of worms or stomach parasites, sort of purge the system. Baboons have also, and monkeys have also been known, also feeding off the tamburti tree. But I think a lot of the trees and stuff that are eaten are possibly inadvertently eaten by a lot of the browsing and grazing species, but I don't think the carnivores are really going to go look for a medicinal plant to eat. Not go back near those warthogs, shame. We'll let them go have a wallow, nice cooling mud bath as it heats up. And we're going to keep checking these drainage lines. So as you can see, like the nyala, all in that nice deep shade on the edge of the drainage line. So we're going to stick to the drainage lines for the next little bit and see what else we can find. There's also another nice mud wallow. I'm not sure how muddy it still is, just across this drainage line next to the next one. So we'll go have a look there.
back, and we do apologize for the brief drop in stream that we've had there and the black screens you were experiencing. But it seems as though we are back up and running once again. And I've checked the whole of quarantine, still no sign of this leopard popping out. I'm sure then that must mean she's in that block, in that drainage line. It's just such a long drainage line. It's going to take a little bit of walking and exploring. But it means very positive news for the sunset safari ahead, unless we get lucky right now and she pops out in front of us. Still double checking. I'm still going to drive along Ingwe Alley just in case she made some kind of trip through the drainage line and I missed her tracks coming through. But if it is Shadow, it's unlikely. I don't think she's going to go that far into her mother's territory. But not impossible, because look at what happened with Kwetile when she was mating with Tingana. She moved all the way right into the center of Karula's territory. I imagine much to Karula's disgust at the time. Quite a lot about Shadow and young Sindile and the unfortunate nature of his encounter with the rabid dog, and the fact that now he's going to need a considerable vaccination schedule. And I actually got my rabies vaccine yesterday as well. So in order to answer Heidi's question, Heidi, you were wondering, can all mammals contract rabies? Yes, absolutely they can. It's carried by pretty much every mammal, it can be carried by people, we can contract it, but the most common ones are things like jackals and squirrels. In terms of the overall world population or the world statistics on rabies, somewhere in the region it's a very high percentage is passed on by dogs, especially in poverty-stricken areas that haven't been following a strict vaccination schedule. That is usually the most common vector. In other words, I'm stopping here, sorry. Thought I heard an alarm call. Nyala's looking intently as well, but not at us. What are you looking at, girl? She's not barking, but she is looking very, very intently. And the nose is sniffing away. Can't see anything. Maybe she just caught a whiff of Karula, who was in this area recently, and it's attracted her attention. I could see her nose working furiously to try and sniff. But just to finish up with Heidi's question, yes, even something like this nyala that we've been looking at could contract rabies. As I said, most common vector is dogs, so most commonly passed on by dogs. But then, for example, in a country like the States, where there's quite good vaccination schedules for all domestic pets, in that particular area, the most common vector of rabies is bats. So all mammals can contract it, and it depends, not the severity, but the time at which symptoms start to manifest depends largely on where the bite site is, or the contact point is. So if it's very close to the brain, then the animal starts to show symptoms quicker. But in terms of rabies outbreaks in South Africa, most of them, as is what happened here with young Sindile, would have been caused by stray dogs. Now, I know that within the townships, the state vet does have vaccination programs. Of course, within South Africa, resources are always limited. And I know that the Sabi Sands also tries to help by raising awareness in the local community about the importance of vaccinating dogs. But there are lots and lots of stray animals, and it's not difficult for a couple of them to slip under the vaccinating radar, so to speak. Very often in the desert, the most common vectors are things like mongooses and squirrels, as well as bat-eared foxes as well, very often get rabies. It is, in certain circumstances, naturally occurring and self-limiting, but it's when you get the additional impact of humans and the fact that they have domestic pets that it gets to the point now where we get these unnaturally large outbreaks. I'm still trying to figure out where our mysterious leopard has disappeared off to. I suspect lying somewhere deep in the shade. And whilst I continue on my search and sort of examination of the surrounding drainage lines, I believe that Brent has another medicinal plant to show you. You're going to be able to open up your own pharmacy by the time he's finished this morning's drive. So let's head across and see what he's chatting about, and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone, and we are again with flowers. This one, as I hear Jamie said, we can open up our own pharmacy by the end of drive. Is not one that's a medicinal use, but it's just very, very pretty, and there's going to be a huge amount of them all over quarantine very shortly. It's called a string of stars, or a lamb's tail, and you can see by the shape if I hold it up there like that. So fluffy and white like a lamb's tail. But one of the more interesting things about them is that they are, let me put it down, the wind's getting a bit strong, heliotrope. So what that means is they will actually follow the sun throughout the day. So they will turn with the sun to get the most amount of sunshine. And also, if one thinks of, I think it's Greek, helo, the word for sun, and the most common heliotrope that we know, we eat quite regularly, and it's used in lots of different things. And James, being a seed eater, eats it almost every morning, and it's sunflowers. So sunflower seeds and sunflowers, and that's why they got their name sunflowers, because they are followers of Helio, followers of the sun. So they will turn with the sun. So while we're on quarantine now, there's quite a few that I know we've discussed before. I'm looking for a very interesting one that I know I have seen on quarantine. So we're just going to meander on a little bit and see if we can find the next one. And then we'll be back into the pharmaceuticals, so to speak. I've seen some very small ones. I just want to find a nice one that I can actually show you nicely. A place like quarantine is a wonderful place to look for wildflowers, and it can also give me an idea of what's coming up in the next week or two, so I can plan ahead. So on areas that like this, where they have a lot of animals, soil slightly disturbed, there's quite a lot of open ground, you find a lot of wildflowers will actually really, really like this type of broken up ground. I remember whether I saw it here. Oh! Martial eagle, and he just went for a dwarf mongoose. I didn't see whether he got it. I just saw him come off the ground, but he's disappearing. You got him there, Andrew. He's going to pop up. He's going to land. He's going to land. We'll be able to see now whether he caught that dwarf mongoose. While I was staring at the flowers on the ground, all of a sudden this massive martial eagle swept in, and with a 2-meter wingspan, and all the dwarf mongoose suddenly just started giving alarm calls. Get the rhinos out. You see him there, Andrew? So in the tallest tree, right up to the left. I think he missed. can do is we try to get a little bit closer to him from a different angle. But I think the dwarf mongoose got lucky that time. And all sort of big birds of prey are really big threats to dwarf mongoose. I don't want to drive directly at him, we just want to take a little bit of an angle. Andrew, we're just going to see if we can get a slightly better look from here before we try to go any closer in case he decides to take off. Magnificent, magnificent bird. They've got a wingspan of about 2 meters, so their wingspan is wider than I am long. Incredibly massive talons and a great feeder of quite big things. I mean, they will take baby impala once they start lambing, baby bushbuck, baby nyala, any of the small to medium-sized antelope, steenbok, duikers. Also another great fan, and they're a great fan of legavans or rock monitors and water monitor lizards. Often see them perched atop a tree with a monitor in its claws. And of course all the small mongoose and bird species as well. I'm sorry, small mongoose species and the large bird species, the francolins, guinea fowls. But unfortunately for that marsh eagle, it missed the dwarf mongoose this time. But very fortunate if you're a dwarf mongoose, and that's that little business of dwarf mongoose we see very regularly on the quarantine clearings. Okay, we're going to try edge a little bit closer again. If we go this way, it looks like he's turned around to face us now. We can get a bit closer now. Very distinct white breast, the dark upper. Now, you'll find that quite often in certain of the raptor species, not all of them, but they do have quite a white breast. Obviously, this helps them to remain a little bit more camouflaged when coming from above. And you can see it's a feathers extending all the way down to those absolutely massive talons. A little preen. Nice to have them sitting still for a while, and you can see he's chosen to sit. Quite often you'll find them, and especially once they've made a kill, they will sit out in dead trees. Obviously much easier for them to take off and land from a dead tree without all that other stuff around. And Andrew, just above is another eagle, an otter. Looked like the brief glimpse I got was an African hawk eagle. Let's have a quick look. We're waiting for it to turn so we can see the underside. it's not. Looks to be another marshal. It just suddenly looked a bit bigger as it came a bit closer, so there's a pair of marshal eagles. We'll go to the one in the tree. I think it spotted the other. Might take off. Just looks like it. Now whether it's a male and female or possibly spotted a competitor. More likely to be a pair. But wouldn't it be amazing if we managed to find a marshal eagle nest? See it. It's trying to figure out that other one's dropped into the valley. I can't see it anymore. So, what a fantastic morning it's been. Unfortunately, the cats continue to elude us, but we have seen the apex aerial predator of this area, the marshal eagle, and it just managed to miss that dwarf mongoose that was right next to us. And it's always incredible to see those incredibly big birds fly by. We're going to say goodbye on behalf of Jamie and Wium, who are on the other vehicle, since we can stay with this marshal eagle for a bit longer. So from Andrew and myself, also have a wonderful rest of your day, and don't forget to join everyone for the sunset safari. For the last few seconds, we're going to have a look at this marshal eagle. Hopefully it'll take off and give you a little bit of a show at the end of this sunrise safari.